The unexpected visit. The sun was setting over Earth, casting a warm golden glow over the cities below. For most people, this was just another quiet evening, like any other. But for the leaders of Earth, this day was different. An alien species, the Xelnians, had arrived, and their presence sent ripples of unease through the world. The news had spread fast. The Xelnians were no ordinary race. They were an advanced species, known for their superior technology and vast knowledge of the universe. In the UN headquarters, the world's leaders gathered, staring at the giant hologram display. It was filled with images of the Xelnian ships, their sleek silver hulls shimmering against the backdrop of space. These ships, massive and intimidating, hovered above Earth's atmosphere like an unblinking eye, watching every movement. "I don't trust them," President Allen muttered under his breath, his eyes fixed on the display. His voice was steady, but the tension in the room was palpable. Why are they here? What do they want? The Xelnians had sent a delegation, but their purpose remained unclear. They had offered no specifics, only a brief cryptic message. "We wish to speak, face to face. There is something we must share." Ambassador Hannah, one of Earth's most trusted diplomats, stood near the table. "I think we should be cautious, but this could be a chance to learn from them. They're known for their wisdom, and maybe they've come to offer us something valuable." President Allen wasn't convinced. "I don't trust anyone who comes uninvited, especially not with their ships parked over our heads like that." But the Council agreed that they couldn't simply ignore the opportunity for communication. Earth had long sought allies among the stars, and that Xelnians could be the perfect partner for their future ambitions. The meeting was scheduled, and within hours, the representatives of Earth found themselves on a secure landing platform, waiting for the Xelnian delegation to arrive. The air was thick with anticipation. News crews from all over the world had gathered, broadcasting every second of the historic event. The moment the Xelnian delegation landed, the atmosphere became electric. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their towering figures, their smooth, silvery skin, and their eyes, large and luminous, as if they could see straight through to a person's soul, left Earth's representatives in awe. Ambassador Hannah stepped forward, extending her hand in a gesture of peace. The Xelnian leader, a tall being with a regal presence, stepped forward and nodded respectfully. His voice was deep, calm, and chillingly authoritative. "We come not as conquerors, but as friends," he said, his eyes studying the human diplomats closely. "We seek knowledge, and we offer knowledge in return." The conversation that followed was cordial, but filled with hidden tension. The Xelnians spoke of their advanced technology, their knowledge of the universe, and their ancient civilization. Earth's leaders listened intently, but in the back of their minds, doubt lingered. They were wary of the true motives behind the Xelnians' visit. It was the following morning that everything changed. A grim report came through. The ambassador sent to meet with the Xelnians, a highly respected Earth diplomat named Marcus Train, had been found dead. His body was discovered in the embassy's chambers, but something about his death didn't sit right. The scene was eerily quiet, almost too clean. It was as if someone had made sure to leave no trace of what had happened. The news spread like wildfire. Shockwaves of fear rippled through Earth. How could this happen? The Xelnians had been so careful, so polite during their meeting. There had been no indication of any violence. "What do we know?" President Allen demanded, pacing across the room as he spoke to his advisors. "Not much, sir," General Rogers replied, his face grim. "We have the body, but the cause of death is unusual. There are no clear signs of struggle, no toxins, no wounds. It's like he just died." The room fell silent. "This is bad," said Ambassador Hannah, her face pale. "The Xelnians were supposed to be our allies. We trusted them. But this isn't just a simple misunderstanding." The leaders of Earth had no answers, only questions. Why would the Tselnians harm an Earth ambassador? Was it a mistake, or something more sinister? The fear in the room was palpable. The entire future of humanity seemed to hang in the balance. A decision had to be made quickly. Earth's leaders needed to act fast, but they couldn't afford to make the wrong move. If this was an attack, it could mean war, and if they misjudged the situation, it could cost them even more. The Xelnians, meanwhile, seemed genuinely shaken. They had sent a representative to Earth, but they had no explanation for what had happened. They claimed their innocence, but no one believed them. The silence between the two sides grew, each waiting for the other to make the first move. As tensions rose, Earth's military was put on high alert. If the Tselnians were behind the death of Marcus Train, Earth would not stand by idly. The situation was becoming more complicated by the minute. But as Earth prepared for the possibility of war, another unsettling report came in. The Xelnians were not the only ones to blame for Marcus Train's death. There were other forces at play, unseen forces, moving in the shadows, manipulating the events that were unfolding. And Earth, unaware of the true enemies they were about to face, braced itself for the battle ahead. The real question was this just the beginning? Or was something much darker waiting just beyond the horizon? The gathering storm. In the wake of Marcus Train's death, the entire world was on edge. Governments were in a frenzy, scrambling to understand what had happened and what it meant for Earth's future. The death of such a respected ambassador had sent shockwaves through humanity, sparking a chain of events no one could have predicted. The Xelnians, despite their diplomatic presence, were acting strangely. Their official channels remained open, but the ambassador they sent to speak in their defense was evasive, speaking only in riddles and half-truths. Some humans began to question whether the Xelnians were truly to blame, or if they had been involved in something larger, something far more dangerous. President Allen, in an attempt to regain control of the situation, called an emergency meeting with Earth's highest-ranking officials. General Rojas stood at the front, his stern gaze scanning the faces of the leaders. The entire room was tense. The unexpected loss of the ambassador had not only shaken the political landscape, but it had also forced Earth into a corner. The Xelnians claimed they had nothing to do with Train's death, General Rojas said, his voice low and unwavering. But there are inconsistencies in their story. We need to know the truth before we make any decisions. Ambassador Hannah nodded, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The death of Marcus Train wasn't an isolated incident, and she feared that the Xelnians had been involved in something far darker than anyone had suspected. We have to be careful, she said, her voice betraying her worry. This is not just about one death. There's a bigger picture here, one that we might not fully understand yet. We need more information, and we need it fast. President Allen leaned forward, his fingers steepled together as he considered the next course of action. I want all available intelligence teams to investigate every angle. We need answers about the Xelnians. Are they truly innocent, or is there a deeper conspiracy at play? The room nodded in agreement, but no one could ignore the growing fear that hung in the air. What if the Xelnians weren't the real threat? What if they were just pawns in a much larger game? Meanwhile, across the world, a network of covert operations had already begun. Earth's top-secret agents were dispatched to investigate every lead. Every detail, no matter how small, was scrutinized. But the deeper they dug, the more unsettling the discoveries became. One team infiltrated the Xelnian embassy, only to find strange artifacts hidden within its walls, ancient devices that no human had ever seen before. Some of the artifacts seemed to be of technological origins far beyond Earth's understanding. It was as if the Xelnians were hiding something, a secret too dangerous to reveal. Another team tracked down a former Xelnian diplomat who had defected years ago. He had disappeared without a trace, but they managed to find him in a remote area, living in hiding. When they confronted him, he was hesitant to speak at first, but after some persuasion, he revealed shocking information. The Xelnians have a long history of manipulation. the defector said, his voice trembling. They're not just a peaceful race. They've been involved in wars for centuries. They've used their advanced technology to manipulate weaker species. I fear that they may have awakened something dark, something that they can no longer control. The agent who had interviewed him rushed back with this new intelligence, presenting it to the leadership. But what did it mean? Were the Tselnians actually the masterminds behind the plot to destroy Earth, or had they been drawn into something larger than themselves? As Earth's military prepared for the worst, the public remained unaware of the full scope of the danger. The news outlets reported on the diplomatic fallout, but no one knew the extent of the impending storm. The political leaders of Earth had no choice but to keep the truth hidden from the masses, for now. But their time was running out. If the truth were to come to light, the planet would be thrust into a chaos it might not be able to survive. And then the unthinkable happened. A new signal was detected, a strange transmission from deep space, far beyond the reach of any human technology. The signal was faint, but it was unmistakable. It was a distress call, and it seemed to be coming from a location just outside the Tselnian-controlled space. Who is sending this signal? President Allen asked, staring at the screen. Unknown, sir, General Rojas replied. But the frequency and structure of the signal indicate it's not from any race we know. Ambassador Hannah's face grew pale. What if this is the beginning of something worse than we can imagine? What if the Tselnians aren't the threat, but the ones who've been trying to stop it? No one spoke. The room was silent, each person processing the enormity of the discovery. The signal's message was clear, but terrifying. The war has already begun. The final battle is coming. Humanity is the only force that can stop it. Prepare yourselves. Suddenly, the weight of the moment became unbearable. Earth was standing on the precipice of something that could change the course of history forever. Was the signal a warning? Or was it a call to arms, urging humanity to face an even greater threat? One thing was certain. Earth's leaders had underestimated the danger that lay beyond their stars. The real battle was just beginning, and it was coming faster than anyone had anticipated. The hidden truth. As the days passed, Earth's leadership grew increasingly restless. The unsettling signal that had been intercepted continued to echo in their minds. The words, "The war has already begun," weighed heavily on their thoughts. Who had sent this message? And why had it come now? Could the Tselnians be warning humanity, or were they leading them into a trap? Ambassador Hannah stood in a secure room, going through the latest reports from the intelligence teams. She was desperate for answers, but each new discovery only deepened the mystery. There were whispers of ancient civilizations, long extinct, that had warned of a coming darkness. Something far older and more dangerous than any of the species they had encountered. The Tselnians had denied any involvement in the new transmission, but the Earth leaders were no longer convinced of their innocence. A special operations unit had been tasked with investigating further into the source of the signal. It had been traced back to an uncharted region of space, a place beyond the reach of known galactic empires, and certainly far from the control of the Tselnians. It doesn't make sense, General Rojas muttered, staring at the maps displayed on the screen in front of him. This signal isn't coming from any of our known enemies, and the Tselnians are too smart to broadcast something like this on their own. Ambassador Hannah's eyes narrowed as she leaned forward. Maybe they're not in control of the signal at all. What if there's something else out there? Something they fear? Rojas hesitated, his brow furrowing as the implications of her words sank in. He hadn't wanted to entertain the possibility of an unknown enemy. After all, Earth had already faced a multitude of challenges, from hostile alien races to devastating natural disasters. But now, with the mysterious signal and the mounting evidence that something was amiss, it seemed impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Tselnians were in a state of turmoil. Their peaceful empire had been built on centuries of diplomacy and scientific achievement. But now, their leadership was in disarray. A small group of rebels within their ranks had begun to challenge their authority, claiming that the Tselnians had become complacent and naive. They warned that humanity was a threat to the galactic order, a force that needed to be eradicated before it could rise to challenge all that the Selnians had built. The faction's leader, a high-ranking officer known only as Korek, had been in contact with Earth's former enemies, those who saw the humans as a threat to their own power. Together, they had been quietly preparing for a war that would break across the stars. Korek's faction saw humanity as a wild card, a species that could upset the balance of power in the galaxy. "We cannot afford to let them grow stronger," Korek had declared to his allies. "The humans are unpredictable, and they are not like any species we have ever faced. Their will to survive, to protect their own, is unlike anything we have ever seen. It's only a matter of time before they turn their eyes toward the stars." Korek's words had ignited a fire within the ranks of the galaxy's disillusioned. While the Selnians remained distracted by internal strife, these rogue forces had quietly begun to gather strength, building an alliance of planets and factions who shared a common fear of humanity's rise. They knew that if Earth was left unchecked, they could one day challenge the established order of the galaxy. Back on Earth, the diplomatic situation had escalated quickly. As tensions with the Selnians continued to rise, President Allen's team became more desperate for answers. The signal from deep space remained a mystery, but it had sparked a new sense of urgency. There were rumors that the Selnians were preparing something, a weapon or technology unlike anything humanity had seen. "We need to act now," President Allen said, his voice grave. "If we wait any longer, we'll be at the mercy of whatever's out there." General Rojas nodded. "We can't afford to be reactive anymore. If we want to secure Earth's future, we need to take the initiative." A plan was quickly drawn up to send a reconnaissance team into the region of space where the signal had originated. The mission was high risk, but it was their only chance to uncover the truth before the situation escalated beyond control. They would need to act fast, before the unknown enemy could make its move. As the team prepared to launch, Ambassador Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover a dark secret, one that would shake the foundations of everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. There were too many unknowns, and the tension in the air was palpable. What they would find beyond the stars could either save humanity or doom them all. The countdown to the mission began, and as the crew of Earth's most advanced ship entered the unknown, they couldn't help but wonder what was waiting for them in the darkness of space, and who or what had sent the warning. The answer, they feared, might be more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. Back on Earth, the people waited. The war was coming, whether they were ready or not. "You said, the silent threat." The mission was launched without fanfare. Earth's best crew, equipped with the latest technology and training, ventured toward the dark, uncharted space. The atmosphere back home was tense, each moment feeling like a countdown to an unknown crisis. Ambassador Hannah and President Allen watched the mission unfold from their command center. Their faces were hard and focused, but in their hearts there was no denying the fear that this might be the beginning of a war they couldn't escape. As the ship moved deeper into the uncharted region, it encountered an eerie silence. No communications, no ships, just an oppressive infinite void. The crew had expected strange things, alien signals, perhaps hostile forces, but this stillness felt unnatural. They had been prepared for anything, but not this. "Report." General Rojas's voice came over the comms, his tone tight with concern. "Nothing yet," Captain Ivana Kor reported, her eyes fixed on the control panel. "We're still on course. No signs of any threats." "Keep your eyes open," General Rojas ordered. "This isn't normal." It wasn't long before the crew noticed something unusual, a massive anomaly, hidden in the darkness of space. At first, it appeared to be just a faint signal, a distortion in the usual frequencies. But as they came closer, the true nature of the disturbance became clear. "Sir," Ivana called out, pointing at the display. "This is no natural phenomenon. This looks like a weapon." "Impossible," General Rojas muttered, his mind racing. What kind of weapon can distort space like this? The ship's sensors picked up faint traces of energy, something far more advanced than any known human technology. It was a trap, a carefully calculated one. The crew began to understand that they weren't the ones searching for an enemy. They were being lured into a carefully crafted snare. "Captain," the ship's chief engineer, Lieutenant Kayla, spoke up. "The ship's systems are starting to malfunction. Power surges are unpredictable. We need to get out of here, now." But it was already too late. A flash of light erupted in the distance, and the ship's communication system was overwhelmed by a pulse of strange energy. The ship shook violently, and the crew scrambled to maintain control. But despite their best efforts, they were pulled toward the center of the disturbance, unable to break free from its pull. Inside the control room, Ivana's hands flew over the controls, trying to make sense of the chaos. "We're caught in some sort of gravity well. Something is pulling us in. Brace for impact," General Roges shouted as the ship began to spiral uncontrollably toward the center of the anomaly. The crew could feel the force of the gravity tugging at their bodies, as if the universe itself was trying to crush them. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The ship was thrust into stillness, and the crew found themselves floating in an eerie, unfamiliar region of space. "Where are we?" Captain Ivana whispered, her voice trembling slightly. There was no sign of the energy disturbance, but the entire area felt wrong. The ship's systems slowly started to recover, and Kayla was quick to scan the surroundings. "We're not in normal space anymore. The coordinates don't match anything we know. We're in a different part of the galaxy, possibly even beyond it." Ivana's heart sank. "We've been pulled into their territory, haven't we?" "That's not all," Kayla added grimly. "Something's watching us. I can feel it." Suddenly, an image flickered across the ship's communication screen. An unknown figure. A message was transmitted, one that left the crew stunned. "You have entered a domain far beyond your understanding," the voice echoed, distorted by static, but the message was clear. "The galaxy's powers have been weighed, and humanity is found wanting. Your resistance will be crushed." The crew stared at the screen, shock overtaking their senses. The alien force that had lured them into this unknown place was not just trying to warn them, it was ready to destroy them. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ambassador Hannah was in a private meeting with President Allen. The situation had become more urgent by the minute. She knew the crew was somewhere out there, but they hadn't heard anything since their last transmission. The air in the room felt thick, as if the silence from space was slowly creeping into the hearts of those who waited. "We need answers," President Allen said, his voice strained with worry. "Why did they bring our crew here? What do they want with us? We're facing something much bigger than the Tselnians or anyone we've dealt with before," Hannah replied, her eyes darkened with concern. "They didn't just send a message. They lured us in like prey." As the minutes passed, the galaxy seemed to grow even quieter. The unknown enemy was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike, and the stakes were rising. On the ship, the crew had no way of knowing what lay ahead. They had been trapped in a galaxy they didn't understand, facing an enemy that had never been seen by human eyes. The question was no longer whether they could survive. It was how far they would go to protect their own. And as they drifted deeper into the unknown, the true test of humanity's resolve was about to begin. The silent threat loomed larger with each passing moment, but what they would soon discover about the galaxy's secrets and their own place in the grand scheme of the universe would alter everything. The first move had been made, but who would get the last? The rising tension. The silence was suffocating. The crew aboard Earth's ship drifted in the alien void, their eyes fixed on the strange, ominous space that surrounded them. They were no longer in the realm they had once known. Something far more sinister had taken hold of them, and their ship was a fragile vessel, tossed about in the dark ocean of unknown space. As the crew sat in their command room, tension thickened in the air. The last transmission from the unknown enemy was still fresh in their minds. "Your resistance will be crushed." The words echoed like a dark promise. They didn't know how or why, but they were now in a battle for survival, a battle unlike anything humanity had ever faced. General Rojas was the first to speak after a long, uncomfortable silence. "We're running out of time. We can't just sit here and wait for them to make their move. We need to figure out who they are, what they want, and how we can fight back." But the truth was, no one had answers. Captain Ivana's hands trembled slightly as she stared at the star chart on the screen. They were in the middle of nowhere, far beyond any known space route. This wasn't an accidental detour. They had been brought here for a reason. And worse, they had been warned, threatened in a way that hinted at something much larger and far more terrifying than any species they had encountered. "We need to send out a signal," Ivana said, her voice steady despite the panic swirling inside her. "Warn Earth. Let them know we're in deep trouble." "Sending a signal is too risky," General Rojas responded, his face tight with concern. "The last thing we need is to give away our position. They've already shown they can block our communications. We're sitting ducks if we make a move too quickly." But the sense of urgency was undeniable. Every minute that passed brought them closer to whatever fate the enemy had in store for them. As they continued to navigate the eerie, vast space, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Something that wasn't human, wasn't even of this galaxy. The days dragged on, and the crew's anxiety grew. It wasn't long before they noticed the strange things happening aboard the ship. The lights flickered without explanation. The temperature fluctuated erratically. Equipment malfunctioned for no apparent reason. It was as if the ship itself was being sabotaged, eroded by an unseen force. "We need to keep our heads clear," Lieutenant Kayla said one day, standing at the navigation station, her brow furrowed. "Whatever is out there, it's trying to get inside our heads. If we let fear control us, we won't make it out of here." But even Kayla, usually so composed, couldn't hide the fear in her voice. They were completely isolated. No one knew where they were, and no help was coming. They had entered a new realm of space, one where the laws of physics seemed to bend and stretch in ways that defied logic. Suddenly, an alarm blared across the ship, pulling the crew from their anxious thoughts. A loud, deep rumble reverberated through the walls of the ship. "What the hell was that?" General Rojas barked, jumping to his feet. Ivana's eyes were wide as she examined the readings on her screen. "It's not a natural phenomenon," she said, her voice tinged with alarm. "Something's moving out there." The crew scrambled to their positions as the ship's sensors detected an incoming object, moving at an extraordinary speed toward them. It was not a spacecraft, nor anything they had ever seen before. It was as if it was made from the very fabric of space itself, an object that seemed to shift and distort, defying all known principles of space travel. "It's a ship," Ivana said softly, "but it's not like anything in our records." As the object neared, the ship's crew could feel an overwhelming sense of dread fill the air. The object was closing in, its shape still an enigma, but the crew had no doubt that it was not there to offer peace. The tension was unbearable. It was clear now. They were no longer just explorers. They were prey, and their predator was closing in. With the ship shaking violently, the object sent out a pulse of energy, flooding the command center with bright light. The crew staggered, disoriented by the sheer intensity. In the silence that followed, a new transmission came through. "Humanity is an anomaly," a cold voice declared, distorted by static. "You have made the first mistake. You will not survive." Before the crew could react, the object vanished into the void, leaving them in a stunned silence. "What the hell just happened?" Captain Ivana's voice trembled. The message was chilling. The enemy wasn't just threatening them. They were already taking action. The ship had been attacked, and they were caught in the middle of something much larger than they had ever imagined. General Rojas was already thinking ahead. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to strike again. We need to make contact with Earth, let them know we're in danger. And if we can't make it out of here, we need to leave them a message. Kayla's face paled. If they know where we are, it may already be too late for us to warn Earth. But even as the enemy's presence grew stronger, something inside the crew began to stir, an unwavering will to survive. Humanity had been underestimated, cast aside by countless alien species before. But this time, they weren't going to back down. The fight for survival had just begun. They had been given a warning, but that warning was just the beginning. The true test of their strength, their resilience, and their will to protect everything they held dear had only just begun. The stakes had never been higher, and the galaxy had just made the mistake of underestimating the power of humanity. In the stillness of space, with every system on alert, Earth's crew braced themselves. This was no longer just about survival. It was about sending a message that humanity would never, ever give up. The battle for survival. The ship was on high alert, its engines roaring to life as the crew scrambled to prepare for whatever was coming next. The unidentified object had disappeared, leaving only the echo of its warning. But even as the crew tried to regain their bearings, one truth became clearer with each passing moment. Humanity was on the brink of something much larger than anyone had prepared for. General Rogers paced back and forth in the command center, his mind racing. They had been attacked, but the enemy's motives were still unclear. The cold, emotionless warning had struck fear in everyone, but it was more than that. It had awoken something deep inside each of them, a sense of defiance. They wouldn't let this be the end. "We need a plan," Ivana said, breaking the silence. "We can't just wait for them to attack again. We need to find a way to hit back." Rogers stopped pacing, his gaze steely. "We've been operating blind since the moment we arrived in this damn sector. We need to gather intelligence, find out what we're up against, and fast." The crew worked in silence, tension still thick in the air. The ship's sensors had been scrambled by the unknown alien technology, leaving them with little to go on. But Ivana refused to give up. She pored over every reading, every scan, desperate for any sign that would give them an advantage. Hours passed. The hum of the ship's systems filled the space around them, a constant reminder of the battle that was unfolding. And then, just as the crew began to feel like they were running out of options, it came, a breakthrough. "It's a signal," Kayla said, her voice sharp with excitement. "I'm picking up a faint transmission. It's not from any known species. This is something new." Rhodas moved quickly to her side, his heart racing. "Can you trace it?" Kayla nodded, her fingers flying across the controls. "I'm trying. But the signal's weak, and there's a lot of interference." Just as she spoke, the ship was rocked by another powerful shockwave, sending everyone stumbling. The lights flickered, and alarms blared across the ship. The enemy had returned. "Damn it," Ivana muttered. "This isn't good. We need to fight back. Now." The ship was under attack again, and this time there was no hiding. The alien forces were closing in, and the crew had no choice but to make their stand. As the enemy's energy pulses began to slam into the ship's hull, Rogers barked out orders, trying to keep control of the situation. "We can't just sit here," he shouted. "Launch the countermeasures. Get to the weapons bay and prepare for combat." The crew moved swiftly, gathering weapons and defensive systems, but the unknown alien forces were relentless. The ship's defenses were strong, but even they were being pushed to their limits. They were outmatched, outgunned, and on the verge of losing everything. In the heat of the moment, Ivana's eyes locked onto Rhodas. "We need a miracle, don't we?" Rhodas didn't respond, but his face was hard. They were running out of time. The energy pulses continued to strike the ship, rocking it violently. But amid the chaos, Kella's voice rang out. "I've got it. The signal. There's more. They're not just warning us. They're calling for reinforcements." The realization hit like a punch to the gut. The enemy wasn't just trying to intimidate them. They were preparing to destroy them. And if that happened, humanity wouldn't just lose this battle. They would lose everything. Rhodus clenched his fists. We're not going down without a fight. We've survived worse, and we're going to survive this. Ivana nodded, determination in her eyes. We're Earth's last line of defense. If we fall, everything falls with us. The ship continued to shake under the barrage of alien fire, but the crew stood their ground. They were ready. The weapons were armed, the shields were up, and they were going to make sure the galaxy would remember the day humanity had been pushed too far. With one final defiant shout, Rhodus gave the command. Return fire. Show them what it means to challenge humanity. The crew unleashed everything they had. Missiles, energy blasts, anything that could punch through the enemy's defenses. The ship trembled with the force of the retaliation, but it was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's resilience. Now they would see what happened when Earth fought for survival. The battle raged on, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. But as the crew fought back with every ounce of strength they had, a new resolve took hold of them. They would not be defeated. They would survive. And the universe would soon learn just what humanity was capable of. This was their fight, and they weren't going down without a fight. The reckoning. The battle raged for hours, but to the crew of the Ardent Dawn, time seemed to blur into a continuous storm of explosions, flashing lights, and the deafening sounds of energy beams colliding with shields. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was humanity's statement to the galaxy. We are not weak, and we will protect what is ours. The alien forces, which had once seemed so imposing, were now beginning to retreat. The relentless fire from the Ardent Dawn, combined with the crew's resolve, had shattered their confidence. They had thought they could overwhelm humanity with fear, with technology, with sheer force. But they had underestimated something fundamental: human tenacity. Commander Rhodus, standing at the helm of the ship, watched the battle unfold through the viewports, his hands tightly gripping the command chair. His mind was focused, calculating every move. The enemy's formation was crumbling. They were losing. But even then, Rhodus couldn't relax. The fight was far from over. "Status report," he barked, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. "I'm seeing multiple enemy ships breaking off, but they're not retreating just yet. It's more like they're regrouping." Kayla responded from the communication station, her fingers flying across the controls. "They're calling for backup." "Of course they are," Ivana muttered. "They can't handle us on their own." "They're afraid," Rhodus said quietly, his gaze never leaving the battle. "And that's exactly what we need to exploit." The alien fleet, once a massive force that had seemed invincible, was faltering. The relentless assault from humanity's defenses had shaken them to their core. The once impressive alien warships were now listing, crippled by the unexpected ferocity of Earth's retaliatory strike. Rhodus had anticipated that the first wave would be only the beginning. They had expected reinforcements, but the human crew was ready, and they had one more ace up their sleeves. Rhodus turned toward Ivana, who was already preparing the next move. She was a strategist through and through, always calculating, always thinking 2 steps ahead. "Prepare the final assault. All batteries. Let's make sure they never forget who they're dealing with." Ivana didn't hesitate. "You got it, Commander." The final phase of the battle was upon them. The Ardent Dawn's weapons fired in perfect sync, tearing into the already weakened alien ships. But this time, it wasn't just the raw power of the weapons that hit hard. It was the sheer confidence of humanity's final stand. They were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to show the galaxy that they would never back down. But as Rhodus gave the order, something unexpected happened. One of the enemy ships, larger and more menacing than the rest, made a desperate dash toward the Ardent Dawn. It was too fast, too aggressive for them to evade. The crew braced for impact, their bodies tensing as the ship moved to intercept. "Brace for impact." Rojas shouted, even as he prepared for the inevitable. But just as the enemy ship closed in, a massive explosion ripped through the sky. The ship disintegrated in a flash of light, its energy core detonating from within. For a moment, the crew was stunned, unsure of what had just happened. Then, a voice crackled through the communications system. "Commander Rojas," came the voice of an unexpected ally. "This is Admiral Kellen of the Galactic Defense Fleet. We've received your distress signal. Reinforcements are en route." Rojas could hardly believe his ears. Reinforcements. The galaxy was finally waking up to humanity's threat. They had just witnessed firsthand the power of a species willing to fight for its survival. And now, the tide was turning in humanity's favor. Admiral Kellen's voice continued. "Hold your position, Ardent Dawn. The full fleet is moving in. We'll take care of the rest." The tension in Roja's shoulders slowly eased. For the first time in hours, the crew allowed themselves a moment of relief. They had done it. They had defended Earth against an alien force that had once believed they were invincible. Humanity had proven their worth. But even as the crew celebrated the victory, Rojas couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would remember Earth's fight, and they would soon learn that humans were not to be underestimated. Not now. Not ever. As the Ardent Dawn stood victorious, a new chapter began in humanity's story. The message had been sent. Earth would no longer remain in the shadows. They would stand strong, no matter what came next. And as the stars stretched before them, humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer uncertain. Earth had proven they were more than just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy was about to change forever.